History often paints the Middle Ages as a man's world dominated by kings, knights, and warriors. Castles rose under their command, battles were waged in their names, and songs echoed their deeds. Yet hidden in the margins of manuscripts and whispered through folklore are the stories of women who stepped into the heart of conflict and defied every expectation of their time. These were not princesses waiting in towers. These were warriors, strategists, and rebels who led armies, wielded swords, and challenged the rigid social norms that sought to keep them silent and still. Their stories, though often overlooked, offer a richer, more complex view of medieval society and the courage it took for a woman to defy the world. Imagine the clash of steel echoing across a battlefield, smoke rising from a besieged city, and in the midst of it all, a woman astride a warhorse, armor gleaming, shouting orders that soldiers dared not question. This was not a fantasy. In many corners of medieval Europe and beyond, such women lived and fought. Some have names that survive the centuries. Others are ghosts in the records, hinted at in chronicles or immortalized in legends passed down through generations. Take Joan of Arc, the most iconic of them all. A teenager from a peasant village in France, she claimed divine guidance and led French troops during the 100 Years' War. She wore male clothing, cut her hair short, and carried herself with authority that unsettled even the most hardened commanders. Joan's military victories were astounding. Under her leadership, the French lifted the siege of a turning point in the war. But what makes her story extraordinary is not just her success on the battlefield. It is the immense courage it took to walk into the brutal world of war as a woman, to challenge the church and the crown, and to continue even as the political tide turned against her. She was eventually captured, tried for heresy, and burned at the stake. Yet her legend burned brighter still. Centuries later, she was canonized as a saint, her story etched permanently into the annals of history. But Joan was not alone. Across the English Channel lived Telford, the Lady of the Mercians. Staily, though she ruled in the early medieval period. Her story is often forgotten amid the deeds of male rulers like Alfred the Great. Telford was his daughter, and when her husband died, she took up the mantle of leadership over Mercia, a powerful kingdom in what is now England. She was no puppet queen. The Telford led military campaigns against Viking invaders, fortified towns, and struck alliances with other rulers. Her leadership was so respected that even hardened warlords acknowledged her authority. For a woman to rule a kingdom and lead soldiers into battle in that era was almost unheard of. But the Telford did it with brilliance and resolve, shaping the very future of the English realm. Farther east, in the territory we now call Poland, there was a noblewoman named Jadwiga of Silesia. While not a warrior in the traditional sense, Jadwiga wielded influence in war-torn regions, negotiated peace, and protected her lands with political savvy. In the same breath, there were stories of noblewomen who donned armor to defend their castles during sieges when their husbands were away. These were not acts of desperation, but calculated decisions. Women were expected to hold down the fort, literally, when the men were at war. In some cases, they fought just as fiercely. Chronicles mention women on the ramparts, boiling oil in hand, crossbows ready, defending their homes from invaders. One of the most remarkable but lesser-known tales is that of Matilda of Tuscany, an 11th century Italian countess. Matilda was one of the most powerful nobles in Europe and a staunch supporter of the Pope during the investiture controversy, a power struggle between the papacy and the Holy Roman Emperor. Her military support and strategic mind were critical to the outcome of that conflict. She led armies, negotiated with kings, and held vast territories under her control. Her life defied every norm about what a woman could be. She was respected by popes, feared by emperors, and remembered in Italian folklore as a warrior countess who stood firm when others faltered. In the Middle East during the Crusades, women occasionally took on combative roles as well. There are mentions, albeit sparse, of female warriors within the Islamic world who resisted Crusader invasions. One such figure is the legendary Khala bint al-Aswar. Though her exploits occurred slightly earlier during the early Islamic conquests, her story remained alive in the medieval Islamic imagination. She reportedly fought alongside her brother in battles, wielded a sword with precision, and was known to wear a black cloak over her armor, charging into battle and striking fear into the hearts of her enemies. While some details may have grown larger in legend, the memory of such women persisted, signaling a deep cultural acknowledgement of their role in warfare. In the steppes and forests of Eastern Europe and Central Asia, nomadic cultures like the Scythians and later the Mongols had different views on women and warfare. While these are technically outside the European Middle Ages, they influenced medieval European perceptions through contact and stories. Women in these societies sometimes rode and fought alongside men. The idea of the Amazons' fierce women warriors may have originated from these cultures and was frequently referenced in European literature. Medieval European chroniclers loved to speculate about distant lands filled with warrior women. These stories, half fact and half myth, reflected both admiration and anxiety. The thought of a woman defying male dominance was thrilling and terrifying to medieval minds. Even in the Norse world, sagas told of shieldmaidens, women who fought like warriors beside Viking men. While historians debate how common this truly was, archaeological findings have revealed graves of women buried with weapons and armor, suggesting that the myth may have roots in reality. The line between legend and truth may blur, but the very presence of such stories indicates that the idea of a woman warrior was not entirely foreign. Even in the most male-dominated spheres, what these stories share is not just the presence of women in warfare, but the tremendous odds they had to overcome. A woman who wished to fight had to navigate cultural restrictions, legal barriers, and intense societal judgment. Armor was not made for their bodies. Leadership was not granted to them without question. They were often mocked, reviled, or erased from the record. Yet they pressed forward. Their courage was not just physical, it was political, emotional, and intellectual. They had to believe in their cause so fiercely that they were willing to risk everything to stand on the battlefield. Modern historians are beginning to recover these stories, piecing them together from fragmented records, obscure letters, and passing mentions in chronicles. As they do, a clearer picture emerges, one in which the Middle Ages were not as rigidly male-dominated as once believed. Women found ways to assert themselves, even within oppressive systems. Their stories are not just footnotes to history. They are a vital part of it. Why do these stories matter now? Because they challenge our assumptions. They force us to reconsider what strength looked like in the past. They reveal that bravery and leadership are not confined to one gender or one archetype. They inspire new generations to look beyond the surface of history and seek the hidden voices that shaped the world. The women warriors of the Middle Ages may not have filled the pages of history books, but their legacies whisper through the centuries. They lived fiercely, they fought bravely, and they changed the course of events in ways both grand and subtle. Their untold stories deserve not just to be remembered, but to be celebrated. In the rustling of old parchment and the silence between the lines of recorded history, their voices wait to be heard. Now, more than ever, we are ready to listen. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the untold stories of women warriors in the Middle Ages. These were not the damsels you read about in fairy tales. They were leaders, fighters, strategists, and visionaries who stood tall in a world that expected them to remain silent and still. From battlefields soaked in blood to war rooms echoing with strategy, these women carved their own path through history, often against impossible odds. Their courage was more than just the swing of a sword. It was found in every command they gave, every resistance they led, and every time they defied what society said they could or could not do. Their names may not always appear in the big history books, but their legacies live on in the cracks and corners of the past, waiting for curious minds like yours to rediscover them. If these stories moved you, inspired you, or made you see history in a new light, make sure to like, subscribe, and share this video. There is so much more history to explore, and so many voices still waiting to be heard. Until next time, stay curious and never stop asking who else was there.